What's up everybody, welcome back to Dad Does Videos. Today I wanted to show you how to put together this Ridge Racer arcade cabinet from Arcade1Up. If you've watched some of my videos in the past, you know that I'm a big fan of these kind of replica cabinets from Arcade1Up. I picked this one up for $3.99 I think at Best Buy a few weeks ago. So sit back and watch me go through the process. All right, we've got all of our pieces out of the box, and as you can see here, Arcade1Up does a pretty good job of packaging all the pieces and parts. And if you're looking at this thinking, that's it? Yes, that is it. It's fascinating that these eventually turn into stand-up arcades when you look at the packaging, and you really don't think there's a ton to work with. Another thing that Arcade1Up does really well is tells you right up front what you need or don't need. So for instance, and that's the beauty again of making these, all you need is this Phillips head screwdriver right here, and you don't want to use a drill. It tells you exactly how many of the, I guess what I call the little pieces that come with your package. And if you didn't see those while I was kind of going over them, they're all right here. All together, along with the power source that you saw right here. So that gives you a little heads up on what to expect. And then on that next page, they give you a layout of all the different pieces and parts that you're going to use to build your machine, and they label them really nicely. And then on each one of these pieces, when you're actually working with them, it has they have each of the different labels on them. So if you're confused on what piece RL is, because sometimes you look at directions and you're like, what is this RL? Is it not? The sticker's on it, so you know exactly what piece that is. So let's move forward. Step one, and we're gonna find piece G and get these 4 dowel rods, and we're gonna put those in exactly as it says here. Okay, so once you found your piece G, and again, what's nice about this is Arcade1Up labels the pieces. So as you can see here, we have our piece G. And what I like to do is always position these the same way how I'm working with them as I see them in the picture. So the kind of indentation along the bottom is the same for me. I like to make sure you could see these kind of screws on the back, and you can see those right here. So I know I'm working with the piece the right way. Everything is positioned the right way for me. So as you can see here, we are just going to get our dowel rods. They are in bag A, and right here, as you can see, we've got that A on them, so you know you're working with the right pieces. And we're gonna put them, there are 2 holes in each section where you're going to put these in. Notice the X's on the outside of piece G. We don't want to put them in here. We just want to put our dowel rods in kind of the second hole in. So in reality, not in here, but in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply slide those right in. And that's it for the first step. Okay, so we're on to step 2, and as you can see, we want to find the side of our cabinet, piece D, and we're going to attach the side to that piece that we just prepared, piece G. So I've gotten these pieces ready to go in and just kind of lean them up against each other to give you a kind of a showcase of what that's going to look like, but I haven't connected them yet with our screws, so let's go ahead and do that. So again, what we're going to do, just like the instructions say, is make sure when you attach your piece G, we have the indentation, the horizontal indentation on the bottom, and you are going to put those dowel rods into the corresponding holes on the side cabinet. And then we're going to get our screws and then attach the screws to our piece G from the outside of the side of the cabinet, piece D. So go ahead and get your B screws, and again, as you can see here, You know they're the B ones because they have the letter B on the bag. We're gonna get 2 of those out. And then put them over on these sides. So the screw holes that you see right here and right here, that's exactly where they're gonna go in. It helps if you have a couple extra hands for these parts. It's not like you can't do it yourself, but it's a little bit easier when you have someone to hold G in place and then someone screwing in B. So luckily I have a helper here, and my helper is going to help because that's what helpers do. Just make sure it's straight, yep, and then twist to the right. And I like to get them close but not tighten all the way just yet. And we get our other one and put that in the bottom just to make sure everything lines up correctly, and then tighten them in all the way. Okay, that's the end of step 2. Okay, so we're moving on to step 3 here, and as you can see, we need to find our 2 K pieces and our L piece. And as you can see, I have those laid out for us right here. And we're going to put 12 of those dowel rods in, 4 on each piece. And as you can see here, they give you a little direction on where to put them and where not. So there are going to be 3 holes on each side of each of these pieces. We're going to put the dowel rods on the outside of each of those pieces and not in the middle as indicated by the X. So in real life, as you can see here, dowel rod goes in here, and not in here. So we're moving on to step 4, and as you can see here, there's a lot of stuff going on this page. So I'm going to break it into kind of mini steps, so to speak. So the first part of step 4, we'll call it step A, I don't know, is to find that J piece right here along with your D screws and simply screw those D screws into J. Now, for a visual representation of what that actually looks, we're going to get that J piece, and that is going to go right in here, just like that. And you're going to want to have this side up. The holes are going to go up on this side. And again, for things like this, I like to get the screws in and started going a little bit, and then put the other screws in just so I could still see where the holes are, where these are supposed to go in, those pre-drilled holes, or else you get this too far in and then you can't figure out where the screws are supposed to go. Just a reminder, when you're doing this, remember these 3 holes, not anything with these other ones right now. Okay, so that is the first part of step 4. Okay, the second part, or at least what I'm calling the second part of step 4, is putting H1 into place right here as well. So a little tip for this, as you can see here, that Arcade1Up gives you, they want you to place this with, and I'm not sure if it comes in great, but there's a little hole on the bottom of H1. As you can see, it's on the bottom here, and it's not on the bottom there. So within your piece itself, here's what that looks like. So you want to make sure that this is on the bottom, so the screws are going to go into this side. So you don't want the screws going into this side. Just like that. Okay, that step's finished. Okay, now we're going to get our pieces K, K, and L that we just put the dowel rods in the previous step, and then attach them to the side of the cabinet, as you can see here, with our B screws. So one thing to keep in mind here as we do this, you could see the sides that face the inside of the cabinet, because this is the inside of the cabinet, you're gonna have the little screws on top, see K and L. So in reality, this is my L piece. You can see the screws here. This is going to be my top piece for K. So that's gonna go up, and the screws for this are gonna face the inside, and then the screws for my bottom K are up as well. So for each of these pieces, what you're going to do is just simply push the dowel rods into the holes, the 2 far apart holes on the side of the cabinet, just like that. And then use your B screw to screw the piece in from the other side. Okay, and here is what your two K pieces should look like attached along with your L piece. So we're moving on to step 5, and this is the control board, or kind of the back side of the monitor. And we're just attaching these brackets F with screw C's 4 times around the board. So in reality, there's one here, and then one here, one there, and one there. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, the brackets go side up, like so. You don't want them turned around like this. That is the incorrect way to do that. And this is what your complete step 5 should look like, with all 4 brackets in place. And we march on to step 6, where we are going to attach that control panel that we just put the brackets on, as you can see here in part A. We're going to attach that to the cabinet by sliding it in the little indentation. So in real life, here's your indentation. And what we're going to do is put this in just like this. And I'm not sure if you can see on the video, but there are 2 sets of holes. There's one right here and another right here, where the brackets that you just put on right here and right here should match up to. So we're just going to screw those in with the same screws that we just used to attach the brackets to this control panel. Now, it sounds silly to say this, but make sure when you flip this around that this is face up. So the screen, when it's installed, should sit like this. You can see the Arcade1Up insignia on the top. So we just want to make sure when you're putting this in, it is in like so. So the Arcade insignia is up here, not on the bottom. Sounds silly to say it, but we all make mistakes. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw these brackets in, and we'll be back with the look of what they look like. So we've got these both locked in here, in here. Finish with this step. And we move on to step 7, where we are going to put 16 of the dowel rods into M, M1, and M2. Here are your pieces right here. One thing to note here as you're putting the dowel rods in, especially on M1 and M2, just note these 2 dowel rods that go in each of these pieces. You can see there are 4 holes on the underside of these. Just put the dowel rods in the 2 closest together. So in reality, you're putting those dowel rods in here and in here on each of these M pieces. And also when you're doing these, you're just putting the 2 dowel rods on the ends of the narrow side, not the hole in the middle too. So I'm going to go off script a little bit here, just based on some of the other Arcade1Up machines that I've put together. Typically they tell you to take the protector off of the screen a little bit later. I find it a little bit easier to do it now because nothing is blocking the screen for me to get it off. Sometimes when the directions call for you to do it later, you've got some things you have to work around. So what I'm going to do is just take this off right now. You just have to be really careful so they don't scratch the screen as you're doing other things. One thing that I'd like to do to help get this protector off is slightly unscrew some of the screws around the edges. It gets the plastic behind it off a little bit smoother than if you were to leave them on. So what I'll do is I'll just unscrew a few at a time and pull the plastic off around it, tighten those back up, and then do a few more, pull the plastic off, so on and so forth till I get through the whole thing. Okay, so the latter half of step 7 gets a little more complicated. As you can see here, we're putting our two pieces that we just put a couple dowel rods in, or a few dowel rods in, M2 and M1, into the inside of one side of the cabinet, and then putting M on as well. So here's my M right here, and here are my two pieces, my M1 and M2. So we're just going to simply put those in these holes right here. So if you look at the instructions, you can see the M2 goes right in here, M1's gonna go here, and then the bigger piece, our piece M, is going to go into these holes right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that set up, give you a shot of what that looks like. That's what this setup should look like when you have yours set up. A couple things to take notice here. On the outside of M2, you can see the groove right here. So make sure that groove part is facing this way. You can see the top indentation here. You want to make sure that side is facing out like that, because you'll have your dowel rods here facing out. And then as you look towards M1, you can see the tops of some screws right here. Make sure those are facing that way, and you should be in pretty good shape. One other thing, you're going to want to make sure, let me see if I can give you a view of it, but where the plug or the power comes out of, make sure that's facing this way. So even though you can see it a little bit better there, but it's the plug is coming out down that way. So make sure it's facing down. Oddly enough, we're not going to attach these yet. That's going to come later. So let's move along. In step 8, you're going to grab your piece N and put 2 dowel rods in each side. And as you can see here, we don't want to put a dowel rod in where the X's are, so the spaces that are right in line with the screws. So in reality, as you can see, my dowel rods are in here, in here, in here, in here, but there's not one where this top of the screw is. The next part of step 8, we're gonna take that piece N that we just put our dowel rods in and insert that right into our arcade cabinet. And as you can see here on the bottom, the longer side, or wider side, I guess I should say, should be facing up, so to speak, instead of down over here. So let's get our piece. So here we go. And as you can see, this has information for you when you're playing. So in theory, even without following directions, you should be able to put it in the right way, correct? So let's just slide this in. Into those holes there. There we go. Rest that in just like that for now. As you can see, that longer side is up instead of the shorter side. Moving along to step 9, as you can see, we're going to put piece O right down into this little slot, and then piece I into the slot as well. Pay attention where the indentations are for piece I. They go down towards the bottom of the cabinet. So in real life, there's piece O, and as you can see here, there's the indentation at the top, bottom. So we just slide that right in. Like so, and grab our piece O, and put that in as well. Like that. And we're just breezing along to chapter 10, or should I say step 10 here, because these really aren't chapters. Anyway, same setup as we did before with the previous side. This time we've got the other side of the cabinet, E, if you're keeping track, and we want to put that piece J along the side, and then H1 again. Also make sure those screw tops up here face up on J1. So you can see like that, the holes face up. And then you'll also want to make sure on the bottom of H1 over here, you have the little hole at the bottom. All right, here is where the magic happens. Step 11, where we get that side of the cabinet that we just put J and H on. So right there, we get this, we flip it over to match the other side of the cabinet. And as you can see here in the directions, make sure all the dowel rods go into the correct spaces, and then we lock everything up with the B screws in the relevant spots. So if you have a friend, now's a good time to use him or her to help you kind of guide the dowel rods into place. Let's stop there for a second, and then I'm going to give you a tip on putting the screws in. Okay, so we've got that side on, and it looks good from up top, right? But in reality, it never fits perfectly on the first try. So as you can see here, when I get this camera down a little bit, I'll give you a kind of a shot of what this looks like. You could even see the top. So you could see those dowel rods are not all the way in, right here. So what I'm going to do is kind of work my way up top around and gently screw in some of those B screws. And as you can see, there's another spot where things aren't perfectly lined up. And gently screw in some of those B screws, but only put them in maybe a third of the way, maybe halfway, depending upon how it's going, because you want to get the top cabinet kind of in place, but you want to have some wiggle room so we can get some of these other things, some of the dowel rods into place as well. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, and it just takes a little practice to screw those in maybe halfway, and then once you get everything more in place, screw them in the entire way. Okay, so after we attach that side and kind of jiggled some things around, this is what you have left with. Finished with step number 11. We've got somewhat of an upright arcade. So we are moving on to step 12, and we'll divide this into two parts. So we'll do this first part first, getting the dowel rods into each of the various locations on B3 and B. And as you can see here on B, you want to just put them on the two further parts. So this is B3 right here. And be aware when you're doing this, you can see where my kind of big hole is on this, and it's just matching where this is. So just be cognizant of that. And we're going to connect the power source right there from B and put that through the hole. As you can see, it's going to snake its way all the way in. But let's concentrate on those dowel rods first, and then we'll move on to that second part. We're moving along to the second part of step 12, and as you can see here, we're simply going to attach B2 and B1 to the combined piece that we just made. So in reality, here's the combined piece, right, that we just made. Here's our B2, we've got the B1 over there. Just be careful, the red part goes on the outside. The hole that is kind of midway on this side is going to be the one that's going vertical, while you've got the hole on kind of the lower part. This piece is going horizontal. So we're just going to connect those each side with the two screws through those two holes on each of the outsides of these pieces. Okay, and that's what the end of step 12 should look like. Just remember, if you haven't already, put your cord through this hole. So before we get too deep into step 13 here, this is more of a reminder from earlier. What we want to do is make sure our cord from earlier, that's cord M, goes behind this piece of wood that stretches across the back of the cabinet. So in reality, it is this piece right here. And what you want to do, and it's just on top, and it's cord M, it's attached to piece M, I guess it's the same thing. But make sure this just goes underneath this piece right here so that it comes out the back, because we're going to need to access that later on. And you'd hate to put what we're going to put on in step 13 right now and then not be able to access this later, because it would still be kind of stuck up here. So just wanted to give you a quick heads up just to do that. So then when we get into step 13, you can see we're going to get the piece that's kind of the marquee that we just put together right here, and just put that right on top of our cabinet. It's going to fit right in these dowels, these 4 that are sticking up, and then we're going to screw in these screws, these B screws, into the holes right here, 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 and here. So let's go ahead and put this on top. And when we do this, we are going to make sure that this cord, again, just like the M cord, goes behind this little piece of wood right here, and that hangs down as well. So this just might take some moving around here to get those dowels in the right spot. There you go. And like I mentioned, we're just going to then screw our screws in the different holes. So once you get that marquee set up and in, just like we have right here, there are 3 screw holes on the side that we haven't gotten to yet, and that's what we're going to do next, inserting those 3 remaining screws into those holes. So those would be the 2 right here, and then further on down the machine, right here. Okay, so we're finished with that step, and this is what your machine should start looking like. Starting to really come together with a marquee up front, which is looking pretty cool. So we'll move on to the next step. So we're moving along to step 14, and like some of these other steps, we have 2 parts. First part, we are going to put slide H, kind of slide that up into the back of our arcade cabinet and lock that in with our 2 screws here. Those are E. So let's take care of this first. This is your piece H. It has a lot of the disclaimers and the writing on the back. So what we're going to do is slide this right up here, so it goes right in this slot right here, and it's going to go just like that. And then there are 2 screw holes. There's one here and there's one here. And remember earlier how important it was where you had these holes right here on these blocks. That's where those screws are going to go in. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that right now. And as you can see here, we have piece H locked in place. And now for the second part of step 14, we are going to use our 2 screws right here, the C, and put 2 of them in the brackets right here. And then this other line is pointing to the brackets that you just can't see. So in reality, what we are going to do is put those 2 screws right here and then up here as well. And if you flip forward to step 15, you can see that we already did this part, as I advised earlier, to remove the screen cover, just because it's easier, at least in my mind, to do that at that point. So we're gonna obviously skip past this. And as you can see in the background there, we've got the steering wheel ready to roll, which is basically the next step. In step 16, and I guess right before that, or included in step 16, we're going to take the protective cover off of the base of the steering wheel. So that's going to be right here. They suggest to start. We're also going to remove the pieces of tape on both sides of the cover as well. So after you do that first part of step 16 and you've got your wheel all ready to go, the next part is connecting the wheel and I guess the base to the arcade cabinet by virtue of these cords. So if you don't have an extra pair of hands, perhaps there's a way for you to set up your cabinet so that you can rest your wheel on something sturdy. So for me, I'm just using a couch, as you can see here. I kind of propped up my wheel against the couch and against the cabinet itself to kind of keep that in place while I get the connections ready in the back. Okay, so we're gonna make two connections to the back of the base of your wheel, and they're gonna go into this little rectangular shape and the circle right here. You're going to connect a ribbon and a wire. Those are located on the back of your arcade cabinet. So here's the ribbon right here. We're going to remove that piece of tape to let it go down. And then here is the cord that we're going to plug in, and that's taped on too. So we're going to remove this piece of tape right here. Okay, I know this isn't the best shot because I'm kind of coming up from underneath the space where we're going to plug this stuff in, but our ribbon here is going to go right in that rectangular piece right here. This wire right here is going to go right into that circular piece right there, and then it's part of the wire is going to hook onto this little white hook. All right, that is what your setup should look like once you've got those pieces installed into the back of your wheelbase. And now we move on to step 17, where we are going to attach our wheel to the arcade cabinet using 4 B screws. And if you'll recall, when we were putting together the cabinet earlier, in one of those steps I reminded you that we wanted to keep these pieces with the screw holes on this side, the J pieces up, just like these. That's where we're going to screw in those B screws through the base of your wheelbase and into those wood pieces. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we've got the wheel attached, as you can see here. Looks pretty good, and I must say I'm kind of surprised. This feels really good, really sturdy. So I'll be interested to see what this feels like when we actually play. But nice job by Arcade1Up to put a nice sturdy steering wheel on. So moving along to step 18, and we're just going to concentrate on one aspect of this at a time. We are first going to connect this wire B from the Marquee, and you can tell where it goes because it has a little light bulb right here. And then we're going to get our old friend M, and we're going to plug that into where the sound icon exists. So, in reality, this is from the Marquee. It has the short end on it. That's how we know that. Just going to get that, plug it in up here where that light bulb is, and then this is M, and we are just going to plug that into where that sound icon is, right in there. So once you've got those two wires connected, then we are going to get our separate set of wires from the box, and that is, grab it here, this set. And we are going to connect one end of it, as you can see here, right into the part on the back where it has the power icon. And then we're going to connect the other side of this, the black side, to the black flagged cord coming out of the back of your machine. So, in reality, we've got one end of that new wire from the box that has the icon on it for power, so you know where to put that, right? So you just put that right in. Right there. You're gonna get the other side of that new wire with the black tape, and you're gonna connect that to the wire that's coming out right there out of the back of your steering wheel base. And it also, you probably can't see it, has the black tape on it. So you just connect these together. Onward we go to step 19, where we're going to put the back on our cabinet, and that is piece F, as you can see right here, and we are going to attach it. But before we do that, we are going to get the cord from the back of your wheel, that's C, and it's white inside your cabinet, and then the other cord that should be hanging down, and that is that ×1 piece that we just put in, and we're gonna string those through, as you can see right here and right here, into the cabinet, and then attach with those screws. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, so we've got the white cord, and that is coming from the back of your wheel, and you should have one other cord hanging down, and that should be from the cord that we just installed. That's the 1X, so to speak. So these are the two that will be coming out of the back of your cabinet. This one will be in the kind of the top hole in the back of the cabinet, and this is going to be on the bottom. As you can see here, each of these has a, I guess, a little nub right here. And those are the things that fit right into the back of the cabinet, into that piece where we're going to put in, and it purposely has a spot where it'll just stop and won't go any further. So in reality, let's see, we've got our big back, right? Let's get these through first. So as you can see, the white one coming through here, and hopefully you can get a good shot of this, because what we want to do is make sure the back of it's coming through. What I find works well is you kind of squeeze the back a little bit to get it through the hole, and then just push. It takes a little bit of effort, but it'll eventually go through. There we go. As you can see here. Oh, let me do the other one first, and I'll give you a side view. Okay, so here's what these look like if you're looking on the side of them. So hopefully that helps you understand and get a better view of what these should look like. And now we're just going to simply use those E-screws and attach the back in the relevant spots. And that is up here. There's a hole here and a hole here. And then, let's see if I can pick this up a little bit. There's another one right here. Okay, so we've got the back on. One thing that I forgot to mention before is when you put the back of the cabinet in, make sure the bottom, or make sure the back slides into the slot right here. You can't see it right now because the bottom of this is in it, but there's a slot right down here. You're going to want to make sure the slides in there, and then you attach the back of the cabinet with the screws. Moving along to step 20, this is where you put together the base, and we're gonna start right up here first and get all of these pieces together. We have them right now. I'm gonna put all the dowel rods in them and set them up and show you what that looks like. Okay, so as we're going through this, I just wanted to point out a couple things on this piece, this little piece, RV. Your dowel rods should be in the side where there are just 2 holes. If I flip this over, you can see there are multiple holes on this side. You just want them in on the top. And then for each of the other pieces, as you can see here, pick up this piece, your dowel rods for each one should be in the closest 2 holes to the center. You can see there's another hole here, another hole here, and it's the same on each of these. Just don't put your dowel rods in those. Okay, so we moved on to the second step within step 20, and that's right here, and this is what this should look like once you're done with this second step. And just a couple things to point out. I mean, I think it's relatively self-explanatory in putting the screws into certain places, but make sure the stickers for each of the pieces are facing inward. I mean, it kind of makes sense when you see that, you know, some of these things are obviously supposed to face outward, but you'd be surprised what you see. And some of the things that I also like to point out is that on the bottom of these, you should be able to see there are the little caps on the bottom. That's how you know which side goes down. So again, you'd think it'd be pretty self-explanatory when you see these caps and you know that goes on the bottom, but people mess this stuff up a lot. So we moved on to step 3, I guess, within step 20, and that's just putting on RM and RO. And as you can see here, this is RM in front, and we've got RO in the back. Nothing too terribly tricky with this step. All right, so we're moving along to step 4 here within step 20, and that's just putting our RQ pieces in, and I already have them set up to screw in here. Just one little tip here. If you've learned anything by watching this, hopefully it's that when there's any question, you probably shouldn't see the sticker. So again, with this, you want the sticker down, and the holes you should be drilling in, or not drilling, screwing your screw into the kind of bigger holes on top rather than these ones on the bottom. So you should face like that. Okay, and for the last part of this section, we're simply going to slide part P, and that's the gas and brake, right into the little slot that's open on the box that we just created. So there's our gas and brake. Slide that in. And if you haven't done this yet, there's nothing that kind of connects this piece to the cabinet itself. It just lays flat in there. There are some pads on the bottom of this that help keep it in place, however. Okay, remember there is that little hole right there. So what we're gonna do is make sure our wire goes through there. It's just gonna sit over the side for now. So as you can see, it's like that. And you can see the wire right there going in to the little small cutout right there. So if I pull this out a little bit, you probably see a little bit better. There you go. That's a better shot. So that's what yours should look like at this point. Last part of step 20, and here's a good time for you to grab another set of hands. What you'll want to do is, as you can see here, get that cord, that white cord that is coming from the gas and brake system, and kind of put that over the back top of the box that we just created, and then put your arcade cabinet on top of the box. So in reality, it should look like this. Let me go around back. Hopefully you can see. And there's that white cord. You can just rest it right on top of the box right there. While you put your cabinet in, there's enough space here where there's enough wiggle room so your cabinet's not gonna crush it, so to speak. Okay, step 21, and this is where we secure the cabinet to the riser or the box that we just made using those 4 screws that you see in the picture here. Those are screws H. So in reality, those are these holes right here, and there's not a pilot hole, so to speak, on the other side of these. So when you're screwing your screws in here, they'll be a little bit more challenging to go in, but just keep going. They'll eventually catch the wood behind it. Moving along to our last step, 22, this is where we connect the power. You can see on the bottom there, Y, to the bottom cord coming out of the cabinet, and then we connect the top cord, so to speak, C, the white one, to the other white cord coming out of this part of your cabinet, and that's the one that's coming from your wheel. So in reality, there's our white cord. We're just going to connect that right up there to our other white one. And then we're going to connect our power, this one, to our power source. So let me get that set up. Okay, that's what the back of your cabinet should look like. You can see the white cords are connected to each other, and then lower on down, we've got the black cords connected to each other. And then the end of your power source just plugs right into the wall. And then we'll turn the machine on and see if everything works correctly. All right, here's the ultimate test. We're gonna turn this on, stand back, and see what happens. So just get that off on switch right here. You see the marquee light up. We've got the screen loading. There we go. So looks like so far we are in pretty good shape. Go! Got the intro going. And I'm sure we'll be back to give you a little glimpse of the... As you can see here, it's asking me to set up the Wi-Fi. I'm not gonna do that right now. That's a pretty easy step-through process. Just follow the directions. But that's it for this. Looks like we're functioning pretty well. We'll be back to give you a look at the gameplay, since there are a multitude of games on this. Thanks for watching, everybody.